Okay, good evening, and thank you all for coming to our Rules and Public Policy meeting. Did you all receive the agenda and the meeting minutes? Have you had an opportunity to review the minutes from November and December of 2020 that I sent you last month?
Were you asking me?
No, I was asking Ms. Zorb and Ms. Blythe.
Oh, okay. Sorry. I thought you said Ron. I apologize.
I don't remember if I got a chance to read them. I might have put them in my folder. Let me check.
Ms. Zorb, did you have?
I am okay with the January 25th meeting minutes.
Okay. What about November, December? Did you have a chance to look at those?
No, but I am confident in your abilities to take minutes.
Thank you very much. I appreciate that.
You're welcome.
Well, hello, Miss Anderson. How are you today?
I'm good. How are you?
Good.
Why do you say Matt Miller Novak?
He sent me a text.
Yeah, I used his link to get in.
Oh, okay.
Is that okay?
That's
Sorry.
perfectly fine.
Okay. I didn't even realize I said that. I wonder if I can change my own name. Yeah, I can.
There we go. Yay.
And that is why we shouldn't share links.
Yeah.
Yes. That is.
Yeah, I didn't get a link for tonight's meeting. I mean, I'm not on the committee, so that's probably why, but
Yeah,
exactly
I need to be better about just sending everybody links. I don't, but I don't.
Okay.
Huh?
I said, oh, it's okay. I think because normally I get them from like ICR.
Right, but I have to tell Mary Jo who to send them to. And
Okay.
that's on me. I apologize, but I will make sure you get them from now on.
Oh, well, thank you.
Yes, I just, okay, so I think we can go ahead and get started. I was waiting for Ms. Blythe to tell me what she thought about the meeting minutes. Did you have an opportunity to review them?
January 25th, I must have forgot to print them or missed them in my email, but I'll get them after the meeting. I have a jamming printer here, so I'll either print it at work later on this week, or I can still read it online, or either print it on when I go to City Hall. Some reason it's not in my notes. I don't know why.
Okay, I just sent those meeting minutes today. So that would have been this afternoon, maybe about 4.
Okay, then I missed them in my printouts. I got the 2 agendas and the notes, but I must have missed that one.
Okay, no worries. Okay, so as far as legislation is concerned for this meeting, I don't have anything I wasn't given anything for us to review. Does anybody have anything that they'd like to discuss?
I am curious where the surface legislation is. Do we have that yet? Oh, I see it in old business.
Yes, I have that. I'm coming up to that.
Sorry, my bad.
Okay, so old business, first in old business is the Surface Pro legislation. I did talk to Mr. Dieters about that, and he seems to think that we would run into ethics issues if we were to vote on something giving ourselves a benefit. And so I was somewhat concerned about that and just kind of wanted to come back to you all to ask you what you thought. Now, I think that it might be okay for the administration to kind of decide that they want to provide like a separate device for council members to use while they're on council from their personal devices. I think that that would be okay. But he thinks that us voting for a benefit, that something that benefits us personally or benefits us, I think that was the way he put it, what we would run into at, we could possibly get an ethics complaint filed. And, all you have to do is say the word ethics to an attorney and, I cringe and kind of curl up into a ball in fear. So I just want to know what you guys think about that.
So my knee-jerk reaction is it's a tool. It's not a benefit. It's working from home. It's almost a necessity. We would not be interacting right now if I don't have a tool to do that with. And then, I mean, all of email, all of the correspondence is all done over electronic device. Again, supporting the tool notion versus a benefit notion.
Okay.
I mean, when you're recruiting individuals, at least I did, I asked them if they had a device, a personal device. And if they didn't, then that was kind of at this point, if I'll just say it, there is a member of council that has said that there's a plan to resign. So during the recruitment of that replacement, if that recruitment individual does not have an electronic device in order to do that with, how could they be a replacement? It feels like it's a limiting factor.
That makes sense. I will certainly, what I suggest then, because he certainly was willing to draft it and send it to me. When he used the word ethics, though, he scared me because that word scares me. So for future reference, if any of you want to just frighten me, just say ethics. And, right. Like ethics. And I'm like, I quit. So if it's okay with all of you, is I'll have him draft something and then I'll just ask that it be placed on the agenda for that way we don't have to wait another month before we vote on it or consider it on the council floor.
Yes, please.
Okay.
Madam
Is that
Chair,
okay? I'm sorry.
I just wanted to contribute a little something, I guess, to consider.
Okay.
Kind of keeping in the spirit of what Ms. Zorb was saying, one of the concerns that I had would be that if that is the case, if it is a tool, it could not then be optional. In other words, everyone would have to have it. You don't say, okay, you get this if you want it. All council members would need to have access to one. The concern, at least from the administration's perspective, would be now we have a whole nother set of security issues that would have to be taken into consideration. And particularly with devices that may have access to wireless and, now I'm not a expert in the Surface Pro, but I guess the other concern that I would have there would be people bringing outside devices and connecting them with those devices, because that's
Okay. I don't understand what you mean, Mr.
So
Mosby.
in other words, like, long story short, if you have a flash drive and it is your own personal flash drive, and then you connect it to a city-owned device, that there could be definitely security issues there. So I'm just sharing that with you all as things to consider as this potential legislation goes forward.
Well, one of the things that we had discussed was, developing some kind of rules, procedures, or something for the use of the device, and that should be easy enough because I think that most of us have worked at a place where we had a device and there was an electronic policy with regard to not putting any of your personal information on the device, no pictures, screenshots, no personal email, that kind of thing. I think that, that's easy enough to incorporate into either council rules or the legislation itself. So I think that that would be easy enough to address. Are we good with that? Oh, I'm not even typing. Oh my goodness. I'm just kind of sitting here not typing, and that's not like me at all, is it?
Ron, how do you handle those type of scenarios with the devices that, like the laptops and such that employees use?
Well, right now we only have 3: the mayor, myself, and the finance director. So we don't put any we don't put any personal devices or attach any personal devices to the laptops that we do have. I know for me it's a strict prohibition that everything that is on here is basically what is used for the city.
And is that in a written policy, or is that just understood statement?
That's a good question. Actually, we were just going through the personnel handbook. So yes, it is included or in our revised personnel manual.
And then that would be 4 with Miss Dewald, right?
I'm sorry, say that again.
It would be 4 people altogether with Ms. Dewald.
Yes, except that hers is different because she works for council. She's not necessarily part of the administration. But
Right.
yes, in principle, you are correct.
Okay.
So, Madam Chair, I had a question for Mr. Mosby.
Please.
Mr. Mosby, I heard you say that those other devices you made to me, which I thought was almost like a reference to she's counsel and administration is not. So if there were any accidental breakage, how would their devices be covered?
That's a good question, Mayor. So we would actually have them covered under our insurance policy. We would absolutely do that. We would also make sure that if council decided to go in that direction, we would make sure that each one of those was signed out, because ultimately they are city property. So we would register them, we would assign them, and they would be insured under our current program.
So the city would own them, they just would be issued to council.
That is correct, because as Mary Jo said, she gave a great example. If a person comes on to council and then suddenly resigns or is no longer there, the laptop would still be assigned to that seat on council. It would not, and then whoever would succeed that outgoing council member would then be assigned to that Surface Pro.
And where would we pay for these from?
Well, that would have to be council's decision, but I'm assuming that it would be part of council's budget.
Thank you.
This was initially mentioned as a CARES fund.
Ms. Zorb, is that where you are wanting the funds to come from?
Yes, that was the intent. Yes.
Sorry. Is that Miss Hartman that I see down there?
Yes, I'm here. Yeah, I'm here. I caught your all tail end of the device discussion, and then I realized I didn't type in the panelist number, so I left and came back.
Okay, no worries. Okay, so I will have Mr. Dieters draft that legislation, and then I will request that it be placed on the council agenda for Wednesday. That way we don't have to wait a whole another month for it to get there. Because it seems to me like if, you know, it's addressing a need created by COVID, then we should probably try to make that happen sooner rather than later. Okay, so next on the under old business, I have legislative procedure, but that was really Mr. Miller Novak's baby. So unless there's somebody who wants to kind of have some input with regard to that, I'm going to table that until I can talk to him a little bit more about that. Okay.
Yeah, I have
Hearing
no
none.
input. I'm struggling to even remember what he was referencing.
I think he mainly wanted us to develop a way, or just kind of a uniform way that we communicate with the law director, like a specific way that we communicate with the law director, and then what we should expect back from the law director when we communicate with him. So, and then that way, if we communicate with him in the same way, what we should expect and kind of what that would mean. So I think he wanted to go somewhat into detail with that. And I didn't, you know, since he was the one who kind of brought that up, I wanted to have him flesh that out a little bit more. So I'll follow up and talk to him about that. Okay. Council rules. So I think that for us to kind of review the council rules, we probably should do that in a committee of the whole meeting, so that everybody has input on everything. Like I just, with regard to that, I had a question, and I'm breaking my own rule here, Ms. Zorb. But so I have a question about, just as an example, like when you miss meetings, like what is the policy or procedure with regard to that? So if I just call every week and say, hey, I'm not coming, is that okay?
I don't know the answer to that.
See, I couldn't figure that out by reading our rules. So I thought
So you already
I
looked
thought
in the rules for it?
I did. And I mean, obviously no show, no call, no show is one thing, but what if I call and just say, yeah, I don't feel like it. And and when you ask Mr. Graver, he says, well, she called. So do I just get to do that for an unlimited number of times? Not that I would,
It's
because
kind
this
of
is
like school, that excused absence versus non-excused.
right. So I'm just wondering what happens.
Did you happen to look in the charter? I'm trying to find my copy of the charter right now.
There are
I
some,
did.
I'm sorry, there is something in the charter that
Okay.
it doesn't necessarily say you can't call off, but council, like, let's say, Ms. Underwood, you constantly keep calling off, you constantly breaking council rules, just not doing your part as a council member. The other members of council, someone has to motion for some type of disciplinary action, whatever that may be. That's in the charter.
I think
okay.
I think we kind of police ourselves with it, is what it
Yeah.
is. That
Yeah.
kind of where you're going with that?
Yeah, you do. You police yourself. There's nothing that says, I mean, you took an oath to uphold, not upload, but uphold the rules and everything. And then when you don't abide by them, it's almost like your peers have to say, hey, you're not coming, you're not providing, you're not doing what you said. So you have to decide amongst yourself. I could be wrong, but I think you can vote to suspend. Somebody one time, I recall, wasn't coming and they took a pay cut. They didn't get paid for their time that they were absent. So it's like I was explaining what Ms. Zorb said, you have to police yourself and say, is this in good moral standing? And if you're not, I don't want to use the word contributing, but not doing your part. It's up to you guys, the council as a whole, but someone has to motion for whatever that disciplinary action would be.
So I wasn't kind of trying to focus on that particular issue, but that was just one of the examples that I had. Another one was, and I didn't look this one up in council rules, but this is why I think we should kind of address our council rules, like decorum. Like, there are certain things that we should not be doing in a council meeting or in a committee meeting. And so I just want to perhaps make sure that that's, I mean, that we put that in writing, because apparently we need to do that. So so that's why I want to have I'm going to ask for a committee of the whole meeting to address council rules. So I'm going to put that on the agenda as well, if that's okay with everybody. Any other particular issues other than attendance and decorum? So those are the two biggies I had. That anybody else has?
Can I just add that if we work out the communication issue, or I don't know how to phrase it, that the legislation thing that Matt's working,
Okay.
that I think that could be thrown into council rules too, and it's easier if you have everything in one document versus 15 different things to reference.
Okay, that makes sense.
What are there some communication violations going on, or what is your concern about communications? Anyone?
Just that we are, Mr. Miller Novak wants us to communicate with Mr. Dieters in a consistent way. So if that consistent way means that for example, and I don't want it to be this, but if we decide that we want, just all of the communications to funnel through one person, or if we decide that we want it to always come from a committee chair or a committee vice chair, something like that, we should have a procedure. That way we can kind of say, on this day you received this communication, and there's there's a procedure for that. That way we're all communicating with him in a consistent way. That way he's not getting like multiple emails. Maybe I don't know that that's occurring, but for example, if you and I both have the same question about the same issue, and we both shoot him an email, I don't, I think that was Mr. Miller Novak's. He wants us to kind of come up with some kind of way, consistent way to communicate with Mr. Dieters. And I don't know what that looks like. I think that that's something we have to kind of work through. But I think it is definitely important. And I agree with Ms. Orb. We should just put it in council rules. That way it's there and we can all look at it in one place. And I don't want to, I do want to do the committee of the whole, but I don't want to sit there for hours trying to figure out what we're talking about. So I know that there are specific things that I wanted to address. And if there's something else that you guys wanted to address, certainly I wanted to get that information from you. Okay. So the other thing that I had as old business was the process for committee meeting minutes and agendas. I know we had a mention of someone, well, instead of saying that, why don't I say this? So if I decided to resign tomorrow, I want to make sure that all of the minutes and the agendas that I've created are in a place where you guys can find them and access them. So I just need to kind of follow up with Mr. Mosby about that to make sure that we're kind of keeping track of that. I just think that with COVID and us being kind of virtual for this entire year or most of the year, I don't know that that's been occurring. So I just want to make sure that we have that and we're not trying to track down former members of council, or you guys wouldn't be trying to come and find me, after I'm gone.
Oh, we're
saying,
gonna
hey,
find you. We're gonna find you. But I don't mean to cut you off. Sorry, I did, but I didn't mean to. I thought, I know when I was chair of a committee, we had a file cabinet in the caucus room, and we were to print out minutes and agendas and keep them in there. I don't know that that is happening with any of the chairs now, but there's a file cabinet in there. And at the risk of, since I work in IT, at the risk of saying IT isn't always good, because I mean, it was proven because we had a member of council leave and the Google Docs were under his name, and we had a heck of a time finding them or having access to them. But if they had just been printed on a plain old piece of paper, we could have all found it. So I, at the risk of sounding like an old fogey, I think our best resource is always a piece of paper and a file drawer. And that's my 2 cents.
I think that's a great idea. And I am at least guilty of that. I have all of mine digitally, but I have not printed them out and put them in the file cabinet. So I will take care of that. In the event that I leave, you can go and find them.
I know that dog of yours sounds mean, but I'll bring a steak with me and then come find you.
He would absolutely sell me out for a steak. Okay. So, and I actually will, I've been saying this for months, but I will follow up with Mr. Mosby about this particular issue. Okay, new business.
Can I hold you for a second? Did you say you looked through council rules? I almost feel like that's addressed in council rules, is it not?
Maybe.
Okay, now you can move on. Sorry.
Yeah, but what happens if I just say, you know what, I'm just not doing that? You know what I mean?
I think we just went full circle because I think that's when we
Right.
go back around to council policing themselves. And we say, you're going to do it. Or you shouldn't be the chair. And I'm saying you, but I don't mean it's you, not Erica. Sorry.
I got it.
I'm
I got
gonna
it.
shut up now.
Okay, new business. Anyone have any new business? Jeopardy music is playing in the background.
Do I have to answer in the form of a question? I did.
Mary Jo's on a roll tonight.
No, we're all smiles and happiness. That's how it should be. It shouldn't be me cringing like, oh my gosh, I'm going to a council meeting. Okay.
I have no new business.
None at this time. All right. So for action items, I just have that I will get the legislation from Mr. Dieters and I will put that on the council agenda. I will also request a committee of the whole meeting. Any other action items that anyone can think of?
I would like to request that when you speak to Mr. Dieters about the technology, if you could actually ask him about the tool versus benefit and how each one would be defined.
Okay.
Because I mean, just because you're a lawyer doesn't mean that you want to be ethical. I feel like I'm a good person, so I want to follow ethics properly too, if I'm even saying it right. But anyhow, I don't want to be unethical is where I'm going with this. And so I guess I just need to know. I need a tool, but I don't want to be unethical. So that's where I am.
But the way that you explain it makes sense. Like, what doesn't mean that I can't be on city council if I don't own a computer, which, that's a very real possibility. It's not, we shouldn't just assume, which is the problem that I have with schools, by the way. No offense, Miss Nichols or Mayor Nichols. That's the problem that I have with most schools. They assume that every child has access to internet, and that's just not the case.
And can I also point out that a phone is not, I have a smartphone and I have been trying to do my city business on this smartphone, and it is a challenge and extremely frustrating for me.
I'm sure.
Well, I'll say in defense of the school, they gave internet this year for those.
Oh, that's exciting.
Who did not have internet. You were able to pick up a, I don't know, hot box. I don't know what they call them. So everyone who did not have internet was able to pick up a device where they can tap into internet. So.
And I assume that was North College Hill schools. That's awesome.
Yes, I know there are a number of other schools who did it as well. If there was a need, I'm sure, I'll keep that comment to myself, but I'm sure a lot of people took advantage of the free internet that's still there. So, hey.
I know that there were some communities that actually had like hotspots put in the entire city. Like I know Lincoln Heights did that, and one other community did that, which I thought that was phenomenal.
Yeah.
And I know Princeton actually, they had like hotspots in certain parking lots, so people could go to the parking lots to use the internet if they needed to. So I just I think that sometimes we just we presume or assume that people have access to things that maybe they don't have access to. And you know, if you're raising children and you're on a budget, you know, you might not have a computer because that might not be at the top of your, you know, priority list. So, but that shouldn't preclude you from being on city council. You know, we definitely want to be inclusive. So I think that that's a good, Ms. Orb actually raises a good point. And this is only necessary because we're all, you know, doing digital meetings because of the COVID.
How much longer?
How much longer? I don't know. I hope not much longer, but I will continue to wear my face mask for the next year. I don't care when they say people can stop wearing it. I'm going to keep wearing it. I'm just going to make sure they match my clothes and whatever. I'm just, you know, I'm liking that.
I'll also say though, I mean, with COVID or not, I mean, most of what we do for council is on the computer anyway. You know, we might have our meetings in person, but with the emails and whatnot, and like Mary Jo said, like it's hard to do that on a phone, especially if you're doing everything else on that phone. So I think it's important too, just for the inclusivity of it all, so that all people can, you know, participate in their government.
Great idea. Makes sense. Okay. I do have one question that's not really related to our committee, but sort of it is maybe. Is everybody getting those emails, like that whole string of emails from the same person?
Yeah, I'll also say that other people who are part of the community and who run other parts and other activities in the community have also been getting them. It's not just us. So
okay, because I was just like, you know, I don't like that many emails on a regular, just on a normal thing. But you know, to open up your email and see like, you know, 50 new emails.
30. There's 30 or 34
right now.
And I have more. I don't know if he's emailed anybody individually, but I have individual ones from him as well. So Mr. Mosby, that today, and I do know that he's working on it. Not sure, but I have 30 that are between everyone, plus an additional stream that he emailed me separately.
Yeah, the guy is disturbing.
I just hope he has a caregiver and he's getting the help that he needs, you know, that he's safe.
Sprinkled over it, or the ability to dunk.
Ms. Hartman, was there something you wanted to add? I thought I heard your voice there for a minute.
Yes, I find this individual disturbing and concerning. That's all.
I just, okay, so that's all I'll say. I'll leave that alone at this time. Okay, so, well, we can't start the next meeting early. And we have about 15, 16, 17 minutes, as I see, before the next meeting is supposed to start. So if it's okay with everyone, I will adjourn this meeting at this time. And then we'll just take, you know, somewhat of a break, and I'll see you all back here at 7:30. Yes.
Ms.
Okay, sounds good.
For a second, and we'll have a side conversation that is unrelated.
Sure. Do you want to call me?
Yes, please.
Okay. Yes.
Hello?
Pavel, is that you?
It's Matt.
Oh, it's Matt. I'm sorry. We're on a break, Matt. We'll come back at
Okay.
7:30.
I figured. Sorry I missed the first one.
That's okay.
Been,
We talked a lot. We talked bad about you.
well, thank God. I hope it's in the meeting minutes so everybody can read the smack talk. You know I wouldn't have it any other way.
Just a reminder, guys, you guys are still live. All right, guys, image goes down. You're good to go.
Hello and welcome to our public safety meeting. I am trying to start, okay, there it is. So let's say I'm trying to start my video there. Do I have everybody back with me? See Ms. Zorb.
I'm here.
Mr. Miller Novak, are you there? I see your beautiful face.
I'm here.
That's
Okay,
my
Ms.
beautiful
Hartman's
face
here.
she was talking
Oh, buddy.
about. I am
Mr.
here.
Anderson, are you back? Did we lose Miss Blythe? 1, 2, 3. We still got 3 folks, so we should be good to go. Okay, so at our last meeting, I had sent you meeting minutes for November and December 2020. Did anyone have an opportunity to review those and think that they're okay? No pressure, Mr. Miller Novak, but Ms. Zorb trusts me to do a good job with the meeting minutes, just so you know.
I'm good with the minutes.
Thank you, Ms. Hartman.
I trust you too.
Thank you, I appreciate that.
There's a majority. You got it.
Okay, we are good. Meeting minutes. Now, of course, the January meeting minutes were a little more detailed just because there was a lot going on in that meeting. So I will be sure to send those well in advance of our next meeting to give you guys an opportunity to review those. I've just decided I'm just going to add 6 hours, an additional 6 hours to one of my days so that it won't, that way I'll have time to actually do all of the things that I'd like to do. Next is that fire levy legislation, resolution 6-20. It's not 2021, it's actually 6/2020. So I'm gonna correct my own agenda there. It's actually 6/2020. And this is actually not the actual fire levy legislation. This resolution actually is what the administration will send to let us know like what the valuation of the homes are so that we know like what the actual numbers would be for the fire levy. Am I describing that correctly, Mr. Mosby?
Yes, Madam Chair. Basically, the resolution would be to ask the Hamilton County Auditor to give us a valuation of all of our real property to determine what that specific millage would equate to in dollars. So yes, that is correct.
Erica, it is 2021. Why do
I
you?
thought it was 2020. It's not.
No, it never beings on it in 2020, did we?
No.
The resolution that you sent to us says 2021, and
Okay.
I would agree with that.
Okay.
That the first reading is in 2021.
Okay. I just, it does. Okay. I probably saved it with the wrong name then. That was my bad. So I'll correct that back to my original thing that was actually correct. Okay. So
you were right and you didn't even know it.
Right.
You were right, but you thought you were wrong. So you were, I'll stop.
Okay. So what I would like to do is at least get this part of the process going so we can better determine like how much each millage would give us, because we don't even know that without requesting that information from the auditor. Does that make sense to everybody? Don't everybody speak up at once. Yes, okay.
Yes, I understand the process.
Did everyone get the traffic calming study?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, I'd like to talk about that. Did everybody have an opportunity to review it and digest it? I am so sorry. I've just had a crazy last week, a crazy today. It was just crazy. Every you know, it was a crazy day. So I apologize. I didn't get that to you more quickly, but I think Mr. Mosby had sent it to council back in early February. I'm just kind of resending the same thing that he had sent us back maybe on February 5th. And I think this was this study was done as a result of a request by council. And it actually mentioned some speed humps and some other things in there. So I just kind of wanted to get your thoughts about some of the, because since they're already doing the construction anyway, you know, maybe we can, I don't know.
Madam Chair?
Yes.
Yeah, I can certainly just kind of do a brief introduction, and then perhaps the conversation can go from there. I actually did have a recommendation on one of the specific recommendations, but you're right. This was, first of all, I do appreciate you addressing this issue now, so that hopefully we can come to a conclusion. This was done as a result of a request by council. I think the two things that are important is, number one, the traffic counts. As you see, you saw the traffic counts, and then you also saw the average speed. So if you notice that overall, the average speed on Galbraith Road is not excessive. But what you do see is that there are individual instances where people are, definitely exceeding the speed limit. I do know of specific instances, or at least let me put it this way: I haven't witnessed it, but I've been told, that there are some people that have been drag racing on Galbraith Road. But by and large, overall, the traffic that is traveling over the street is about average, for the speed limit for our community. The second part, of course, is, as you just mentioned, the recommendations that the traffic analyst made. And of course, as you pointed out, those, each of you can read those for yourselves. However, I would certainly, and the one that I would recommend is the one that talks about having the barriers in the middle of Galbraith Road. They can be decorative, of course, but I think it will do several things. Number one, and I've noticed this, by the way, you mentioned the construction that's occurring currently on the east side of Galbraith Road. And, as you see as well, because that much of that construction and repairing is occurring in that turn lane, you see that traffic can only flow, there's only one lane in each direction. And of course, that does reduce the traffic speed, and certainly that prohibits any kind of drag racing that would go on in there. Now, if there were, decorative structures that would be in the road, those could be anything from, just like what you have, the little islands that we have on Hamilton Avenue right now, to something, something a little more decorative, perhaps even taller, something that might even hold, small trees, for example. So there are a variety of options that could be used there, but I do think that the key would be by using that, or eliminating basically that middle lane, if you will. And of course, you wouldn't eliminate it all the way down. It would be just like the islands that we have. So you have, the ability on Hamilton Avenue to turn into, for example, St. Paul Church. There's a lane where you can turn onto Flora, onto Maryland. So you would have that availability. But what you do take away is that possibility of trying to use a middle lane for, a car to speed down. So just having said that, I at least wanted to open it up and give the members of the committee, my recommendation that came out of that report.
Thank you, Mr. Mosby. Ms. Anderson, what do you think?
I was just gonna ask if somebody would mind sending me the report. I don't know if I got it.
Yes, I will be happy to do that.
Okay.
Let's see. No pressure. Okay. Okay. I'm sorry. I'm still, my computer just goes a little slow.
Oh, you're fine. No rush.
Eric, I sent her the entire email that you had sent us.
Thank you.
What I was trying to do. I just couldn't quite get there fast enough. Thank you, Ms. Zorb. Yeah, I was still sitting here like, computer's going slow. Okay. So what did you think, Ms. Zorb?
I'm conflicted is where I'll start, but that's typically where I sit. I have heard pros and cons of the islands that are on Hamilton, which is why I hesitate to say that they're a good idea for Galbraith. And I think I have heard the cons from the police department, and it was mainly because we used to have all the traffic jams on Hamilton Avenue. And if we had a traffic jam and there was an emergency, there was no center lane for the emergency vehicles to get through.
Okay.
So I guess I don't know what the solution is. It's always that 50 of one, and but I almost, so I'm looking at the ideas and this whole chicane thing. That to me looks like instead of a drag race, it would be an Indy 500 race. So I really don't like that idea, because people would say, well, how fast can I take that? That looks like a challenge, like are you up for the challenge kind of thing. I was almost wondering if we could just put the speed humps in the middle and place them strategically so that it wouldn't be at an intersection. I don't know.
My worry with
certainly isn't my expertise.
Yeah, my worry with speed bumps is just that I know there can be issues with like street cleaning and stuff, but I'm curious, have the police been made aware of the suggestion of the median, and if so, what have they said about it?
I'm sorry, Ms. Anderson.
Okay.
Yeah, no, this was done at council's request. If I may just follow up briefly, I think what Ms. Zor was talking about when she was mentioning the islands on Hamilton, I am aware of some of those concerns, but typically that would occur when you have a situation where, for example, there is a driveway and they cannot turn into that particular driveway. So they would have to go over a bump. Probably a more, to me, what might be a better example would be, there was talk at one time about perhaps putting in a concrete barrier that would create a right in, right out situation at the entrance where the Perkins is, on the north end, if you will. And that would be a concern. So I completely agree with her. If a fire truck or an emergency vehicle had to get in there, and they had to get in there from the southbound lane, they would have to turn left into the driveway and then, of course, go over that barrier. I think that is the type of thing that they would be concerned about. But as long as there's open entry into a into a driveway, I don't think that would be as much of a concern. And that is one of the things that I think that we would be sure to do when we're talking about these particular islands.
Can I sneak in?
Absolutely.
Well, it sounds like, and so it's clear, I have maybe no clue about, how this would affect public safety or anything like that in terms of the police. And I kind of agree with Marjorie in the sense we should at least reach out to the police department before we make a final decision. But judging by, well, number one, first, I've heard about drag racing on Galbraith. I honestly thought it was hyperbole. So this is the first time learning that it's not. People are actually legitimately drag racing on Galbraith. So that was educational. But I think that I'm generally supportive of it because I think you have to strategically place them right in terms of the engineering. And I think that would probably take care, if I understand Ron right, with the police or the actual public safety transportation devices in our city, whether it's the fire or ambulances and police cruisers and things of the like. So, but I think we should ultimately reach out to them to get their final opinion. But the one thing I just have to say, for me, this sounds like potentially kill two birds with one stone in the sense of, number one, it's a speed reduction device. And number two, I mean, the thing that's nice about islands is if you take care of them, and they can also add some visual appeal to the city and to the strip. I mean, certainly, I think the ones in Hamilton add a little something. Christmas time, we tend to put lights on them. And it might be nice to kind of mirror that on Galbraith and add some visual appeal, as well as providing a functional service of speed reduction. So I'm intrigued.
Madam Chair.
Yes.
My only concern is, and I think that's what Mr. Mosby addressed, is with me living on Lois, the safest way for me to make a left turn is to get in the center before I, go to the other side. But as long as the mounds, trees, decorations don't keep the, don't block the safety for the 4 or 5 streets west of me, I think that would be okay. But it is a safety issue because when I'm leaving Kroger and I want to make a left going north to go home, I can make a left out of the Kroger part where the light isn't, but you have to make a left, and then you're literally right behind the mound of, the mound in the middle. So that was my only concern about them. But it can be done when you're leaving Kroger, but you got to really jump out and turn your car straight and sit there and, with the mound in front of you, then you can get into the traffic going south. I'm sorry. Thank you.
Madam Chair.
Yes.
So I did want to follow up on Mr. Milanovic's comment. Interestingly enough, I would absolutely agree with him. You know, if you look at the what was done on the islands on Hamilton Avenue and the flowers that were planted in there, they really added a nice touch to our city. And I know that, you know, I heard several very complimentary remarks about them. So I do think that he is correct if, you know, if we talk about what that decoration, you know, might be on Galbraith, how we would want it to look. I absolutely do agree that it can kill two birds with one stone. And I think that to Ms. Bly's point, actually, that again, that just is an example of serving the purpose of these islands. Even if you get into that middle lane, you know, as you just heard her say, you have to go slower and you have to be more deliberate. And I think that that is one of the objectives of the traffic calming, is to make sure that we have people who are being much more careful, even in the middle of the road. So I actually appreciate her anecdote there, and I would ask, you know, obviously, council to take into consideration, you know, some of those things. I would agree with anyone who says that there's always going to be pros and cons. Whenever you have a solution, it's going to, by its own nature, create another set of problems. You know, there's just no way of, you can't get around that. But if the concern by the residents, particularly those residents who live on Gloria and Diana and Pin Oak, Rob Vern, you know, if their concern is to see those cars that are racing down the street, the islands would be a good solution.
Ms. Hartman, we haven't heard from you. What do you think?
I'm waiting patiently. Okay, so islands, I think bad idea. Galbraith Road is only a 2-lane road with your middle section for turning. I frequent the roads along there like Marbev and so forth, and it's, you know, can be quite difficult to pull out of there sometimes. And I am always on Galbraith Road about 6 o'clock in the morning, and at least about once a week I get passed by somebody because they don't like the 25 idea. And I think if we just get the police out there and start pulling people over and ticketing them for going 40, 50, 80 on Galbraith, it might get across to some people. Might make some people nervous. I never see the police out. I never see them pull someone over anymore. But no, putting any barriers in the middle, it's going to cause a problem for all our emergency vehicles. Hamilton Avenue is a 4-lane road. People can at least get off to the side. Galbraith is not wide enough. Those are my thoughts.
I think
So-
we've heard from everybody.
Do you care if I chime in again?
Absolutely. I encourage it.
So I'm looking through the pictures, and I'm curious. Is there a compromise on the medians? Like, is there a half median that could still allow the lane to be bigger and possibly create the space for emergency people, but yet still have a barrier? I don't know. I'm trying to look for a middle ground. I don't know.
I kind of understand what you're saying, like still some kind of raised divider to stop people from speeding down that middle lane, but still give you enough room to pull over to the side to allow an emergency vehicle to pass you by.
Exactly.
Mr. Mosby, what do you think about that?
Well, I was going to mention again, you know, there are other options. One thing that I don't think anybody mentioned this, but you also have the possibility of perhaps putting rumble strips, you know, in there, in the middle. Rumble strips obviously are a car could still pass over it, but they would clearly feel that. The only challenge again
Sure.
would be that emergency vehicle that may have to use that. I think as far as what Ms. Zorb was saying, yes. I mean, I could certainly go back, to the engineer, and we could perhaps, if the committee here could decide, if there was something specific that they were looking for, then I could certainly go back to the traffic engineer. We could say, hey, look, is this a possibility? Can we do this? And I could, find out that likelihood, and then we could come back and I can give you what his recommendation is.
Okay.
Mr. Mosby, I do like the rumble strip idea too, and I am assuming that if you've driven down Hamilton Hill lately by Hammond North and all that, they
Yes,
kind
I
of
have.
put. Is that what you mean by
Yes.
rumble strips? What they did
I
on the
think so.
double yellow?
Very much
Yep.
so. Yes. There might be a difference. You're right. You could put them on the yellow strips, which means that they would not be that wide, or you could, make them wider, right? So that they would actually literally fill up like that whole area. That's another
Oh,
option
okay.
that you could do. But yes, absolutely, Ms. Zorb. It would be that concept.
I'll admit, you sure know when you when you drive over it. So
Oh, for sure. I agree with that.
yeah.
I noticed when they put them in there, I was like, oh, I'm on the line there. So
Um,
sure. I
I'll
also
sneak in
still
again.
like the idea of putting speed limit on the street. I'm sorry, Mr. Milanovac, what did you say?
I was just wondering if I could sneak in again.
Oh, absolutely.
A couple things. I mean, I guess there's going to be pros and cons to this, and I think Elizabeth made some good points. I mean, it is a narrow road, so but at the same time, I mean, the fact that she's experienced people pass her up, I think underscores maybe why they would work too, right? And I certainly hear, I mean, and please, Ms. Hartman, this is not any indictment of your comment by any degree, because I hear it all the time about police, pulling people over and stuff like that. But the problem is with that is it's ultimately retroactive, and all crimes are retroactive and punishments and fines and things like that. And everybody knows that you can get life in prison for murder and people still kill one another. I mean, consequences in and of themselves don't necessarily stop things. And the problem is that most people who speed for a living have a number of speeding tickets, and it just doesn't seem to stop them. So I think we got to strike the balance between doing proactive things and retroactive things. And, I want to see people get pulled over in tickets too. We ultimately have to think about the front end of things. And, I don't know about rumble strips in a sense of, I guess I have a question about those because other people seem to know more than I do. I think of rumble strips, I think of those ruts on the side of the road are supposed to wake you up on the highway. Is that right?
Yeah, that's right.
So when I'm playing with my radio and I'm not paying attention, I run over them, it scares the living crap out of me. That's what we're talking about.
Yes.
Yes, except to Ms. Zorb's point, and this is important, Mr. Milanovac, you just mentioned, right, on the highway, many of those are on the berms because you have traffic all flowing in one direction. On Hamilton Avenue, those same rumble strips are actually in the middle of the road to prevent or to reduce the likelihood of a car, drifting over into into an opposite lane,
They have the
into
same
oncoming
ones on
traffic.
Columbia Parkway downtown. For like
I'm
the same
sorry.
reason. Sorry, I was just saying they have the same ones for the same reason downtown
Oh.
on Columbia Parkway.
Okay. Yes.
We're looking for
Okay.
an example.
Yeah. So it is the difference too, if I may say this, when you look at Hamilton, right? Hamilton is a hill and you are traveling, you're accelerating as you are going downhill. And so those rumble strips being there, I think are, a great they're a calming device, but even more so, they're there to kind of keep people from drifting over. Since we're more level here up in North College Hill, we don't have the hill, we don't have the acceleration. This would, it'd still work. It's just, we would just put them in the middle of the lane, to prohibit or to reduce the likelihood of people trying to use the middle lane in order to go around people or to drag race.
Yeah, make it unpleasant for them. Right.
What does anybody think about the traffic circles? I think they're pretty, but I think they're annoying.
I don't know which intersection we would, or
That-
or just like in the middle of the street, like they have on Teakwood, and put a gigantic tree in the middle. Is that what you're? Is that where you're going with this? Have you ever driven down Teakwood?
Yes.
College Hill?
Right. It's like, right. Yeah. It's just like, that is so random.
It must have been the developer. The developer's wife must have loved that tree, and she said, "You're
Right. I know. Because I was just like, I am not driving back down the street again. Like every time I go down that street, I'm like, this is why I don't come this way.
Yeah, I can't think of any. We only have one intersection that would merit a traffic circle or a roundabout, and clearly that would be the intersection of Hamilton and Galbraith.
Yeah, I think it's too busy, you know what I mean, for that. And roundabouts, I think, work in like university areas and things like that where they're not necessarily main strips. I think too many people don't even still know how they work because they weren't born in England. It just, I don't know. I think they confuse people. I think they're cool. I think they're a good system. I just don't think they belong in our city.
think we would be run out of town if we did it."
I think so too. I think we would have many people showing up to our meetings after that.
I have a question, if you don't mind.
Sure, absolutely.
Do we know if I was looking at the raised crosswalk because I know that we have a few crosswalks like in the downtown area and Galbraith. So I was wondering if maybe that could be an option, but I didn't know if that would mess with street cleaning as like a speed hump would.
Are you mentioning a raised crosswalk as a traffic calming device? Just so I'm understanding what you're asking.
Oh yeah, sorry. It's listed under the vertical deflections as a traffic calming device. I didn't know.
Yes. Okay. All right. We could put those in. Now, let me sort of be clear though. There are some traffic improvements that are going to be made on Galbraith Road at some of the intersections where, that are close to the school as part of the Safe Routes to School program and the safety grant. And those include the striping and improvements to some of the crosswalks there. I mean, yes, we can. I guess I'm thinking more around, or at least my thought is more around where we have continuous traffic, which in essence would be the area of Galbraith specifically between Simpson and Pin Oak, right? Because that's continuous. There's nothing that impedes traffic or anything. We don't have any signals there, or there are no four-way intersections, there are no stop signs. So that's really what I was thinking of, Ms. Anderson, when I was making that particular recommendation.
I think before we went that route, we would probably need to coordinate with Clovernook Center for the Blind, just to make sure that that's not something that's counterintuitive for their population.
I think anything we can do to make our crosswalk safer is something that's good. I personally, I think crosswalks without blinking lights scare me. I don't know that people in the Cincinnati area are always very respectful of crosswalks, and it's not, that's not unique to our city. I mean, I work in Oakley on Madison, and there's crosswalks to get across Madison, and every time I use one, I feel like I need to update my will before I cross the street. I mean, and there's no blinking lights on Madison, and I don't even think people aren't paying attention. I don't even think they even realize that it is a crosswalk. I mean, I thought part of the safer routes grant, didn't that include blinking lights on the crosswalk? Am I wrong about that, Ron?
Well, there are a couple of grants that we were looking at. Let me see. Hold on a minute.
Yeah, I thought it
Just
did
for the,
too, but it's
No,
probably
well, most of it
probably the ones
is
by the school though.
thermal, the thermal crosswalks and the piano key crosswalks. We don't have any necessarily any of the blinking lights or anything like that. Someone did make that recommendation earlier, and that might be something that after these improvements are done, that we can look at as far as our funds that we have available. We can look at perhaps being able to do that, not on every intersection, but we might be able to look at one of the more major intersections right there on Galbraith Road.
This is a really good and helpful discussion. What do we want to do? Is there something that we want to like investigate more, or what do we want to do with this particular information that we've been given? You guys want time to digest it? What do you guys want to do?
well, it's tough because I mean, I think there's some things in here that we seem to like and other things not. Other things I think we want to ask the police about, and I mean, I'd like to discuss it more. I mean, there's good points, I mean, again, I like the idea of medians and for their visual appeal and stuff like that, but it's not like Elizabeth did make very valid points too in terms of the width of the road and traffic and stuff like that. So I'm intrigued by a number of the things. Other things maybe aren't as practical, and I don't know that we're done with this in one meeting. I think,
Okay.
Maybe getting Chief Schran involved or something like that, would be helpful. I do want to do something, but I just don't think we're done yet.
Okay.
Can I tell you that this document did give me a little giggle when I saw the road diet, because that just makes me laugh. And then I look at it, and that's exactly what happened to Galbraith, is it went on a road diet.
No kidding. Okay, well, I will leave this on our agenda for us to further discuss and kind of digest some of these issues. And I'll also request that Mr. Mosby invite Chief Schran and Chief Fells to our next meeting so that we can maybe ask them some questions about how this would impact them and kind of what their thoughts are about some of the things in this particular report. Is that okay, Mr. Mosby?
Yes, and then also in the meantime, I'll also talk to the analyst and look at perhaps what Ms. Zorb had inquired about or suggested as far as maybe doing something, modifying perhaps those islands.
Might I suggest that we also send this report to the two chiefs to make sure that they.
Oh, yeah,
have
well,
time to
I'm
review
sorry,
it.
yes. Right, that's, I'm gonna talk to them obviously before they come here,
Perfect.
so they'll be able to see it.
Okay, is there any old business? I didn't see any, but that doesn't mean anything. Any old business that anybody has? Jeopardy music. Okay, any new business that anybody has? This has been a very pleasant meeting, I must say. It's just been so like calming, and there was no reason for me to have a high level of anxiety before these meetings at all today. So I would like to
And
thank you all very
interactive.
much for that.
You did a great job of keeping everyone interactive. Thank you.
Well, I'm just happy I finally learned what those super scary things that wake me up on the road are called. So rumble strips, got it. I now know something.
Mr. Miller Novak, you should not be falling asleep on the road. I will. Hopefully, that's not happening very much. But
I don't know if I fall asleep, but we're all like, when you look or something around your car and you kind of drift a little bit. We've all hit them. Don't lie. Let's be
oh,
honest.
for sure,
We've hit
absolutely.
them.
I noticed immediately. I noticed that they were on Hamilton Avenue because when somebody's going in that lane next to me, I'm kind of scooting over a little bit because I'm like, are they going to hit the side of my car? And then I'm like, whoa, I'm too far over. So I noticed immediately that they were there.
Speaking
So
of
they
which,
definitely work.
speaking of
Sorry,
which,
Ms.
Madam Chair, the other thing that I wanted to point out, and I think that this might be good news, in the recommendation, and I think it was in there, but what could happen is once we decide what kind of a solution we want, this TEC would help us look for grants. But one of the points that I was going to make for you is that this is also an opportunity for us to go to OKI and say, hey, okay, we'd like to do some traffic calming improvements, and we might be able to even get some grant money from there. We don't necessarily get a lot of grant money from OKI. One of the reasons is because we are landlocked, and there's not a lot that we have done, as far as infrastructure is concerned. So this could be a feather in our cap. It could be, an opportunity for us to get some grant monies to get this done, as opposed to us looking specifically to our street fund.
That sounds great. Okay, so I will table this particular issue for our next meeting, and hopefully, Chief Schran and Chief Fells can join us so that we can kind of ask them questions about it. I did not hear any old business. I'm not hearing any new business. So it looks like we are all done at 8:13 p.m. Yay.
Thank you.
All right, well, meeting is adjourned, and thank you all for coming, and everybody have a wonderful evening.
Thank you very much.
Thanks. Have a good night.
Thank you.
Thank you. Good night, everyone.
Good night.
Bye.
Thank you. Good night.
Bye, guys.